typically takes longer to diagnose because it's an observational diagnosis and the child doesn't have the aptitude to be able to
Some of Hollywood's toughest icons faced something no script could prepare them for. Raising a child with disabilities in silence under the spotlight. Number 2's story will break you.
Take care. Oh.
Number 20, Kiki Wyatt. She can hit the highest notes on stage, but no one expected she'd face silence at home. Kiki Wyatt wasn't just raising a family, she was raising awareness. Her son, Caterina, was diagnosed with bilateral hearing loss and a rare autoimmune condition shortly after birth. Doctors warned she'd need to prepare for a lifetime of challenges. Instead, she chose defiance. While juggling a career with over a dozen Billboard charting hits and raising 11 children, Kiki built an advocacy platform for other families, founding the Caterina Foundation. The signs came early. Her baby wouldn't startle at loud sounds. He'd miss cues from voices. By 18 months, his hearing impairment was confirmed. Wyatt went public not for sympathy, but to warn others, don't wait. She now advocates for early screening in Black communities, where disability diagnoses often arrive late. And here's what few know. Her son now uses custom bone conduction devices and sometimes sings back to her. But wait until you hear about the reality star whose baby diagnosis broke medical records.
So Hart has cerebral palsy, and he acts different. He walks a little bit different, and he's kind of just a...
Number 19, Meghan King. She smiled for the cameras, but the most important story never made it to air. Meghan King's time on Real Housewives made her a familiar face, but when her son Hart was diagnosed with cerebral palsy, she vanished from the spotlight. What happened behind the scenes was extraordinary. It started with a subtle eye twitch doctors couldn't explain. An MRI revealed periventricular leukomalacia, a rare brain condition affecting motor control. Meghan's world stopped. But she didn't. She traded red carpets for therapy mats, reality TV for real life. From feeding tubes to hydrotherapy, she documented every step. She went viral when she posted Hart's first time crawling at age 3. It wasn't just parenting anymore, it was war. And here's the twist. Doctors once told her Hart may never walk. In 2023, he did, with braces, determination, and her by his side. The next entry faced a double diagnosis, and this time the spotlight couldn't hide it.
I am still in my journey. I've gone through a lot of stuff in my life, but I've come through the other side.
Number 18, Landry. She was crowned Miss USA in 1996, praised for her poise and grace. But nothing prepared Landry for the diagnosis that changed her daughter's life. Allie's daughter, Estella, was born in 2007 with what seemed like mild coordination issues. By age 2, Estella was diagnosed with mild cerebral palsy. The condition affects muscle tone, movement, and motor skills, specifically in Estella's legs. Landry, known for her beauty and charm in the Doritos Girl Super Bowl ad, suddenly found herself learning about neuromuscular therapy, assistive orthotics, and early intervention protocols. She launched an advocacy journal, organizing charity 5Ks, funding a sensory therapy wing in a children's hospital, and becoming a guest speaker for CP-focused events. Her daughter now walks independently, but Allie remains open. Every day is different. Some are tough, but we face it together. But our next celebrity never stopped smiling, even as his son's milestones were erased one by one.
Yeah.
He got the tux first, and I decided I wanted to look
You just
like
copied
him. And
him?
That's the way it played out.
Makes it easy, yeah.
Is he a tough dad?
Number 17, Colin Farrell. He built a career on intensity, but nothing in his filmography compares to what he faced at home. In 2003, Irish actor Colin Farrell welcomed his son James. Soon after, doctors diagnosed him with Angelman syndrome, a rare neurogenetic disorder affecting balance, speech, and cognition. Fewer than 1 in 15,000 children have it. James didn't speak, struggled with motor control, and required lifelong care. Farrell, then known for his wild partying, changed overnight. He stepped back from Hollywood chaos and leaned into fatherhood, advocating for early education access, inclusive play spaces, and raising funds through the Foundation for Angelman Syndrome Therapeutics, or FAST. In interviews, he says James taught him more than any script. What most people don't realize, Farrell's transformation was so profound he quit drinking altogether to better care for his son and never looked back. But our next entry's story isn't about withdrawal, it's about a child who almost didn't survive his first year.
Hello, I'm Tom Hopper. I play the superhero Luther Hargreaves on the Umbrella Academy.
Number 16, Tom Hopper. You've seen him in Black Sails and the Umbrella Academy playing powerhouses. But at home, Tom Hopper fights a quieter battle. His son Freddie, born in 2015, began missing verbal milestones by age 2. Doctors eventually diagnosed him with nonverbal autism. Hopper and his wife Laura noticed early sensory issues. Freddie didn't respond to sounds, avoided eye contact, and preferred repetitive behaviors. The diagnosis led the family into an intense routine of occupational therapy, speech training, and a complete lifestyle overhaul. Instead of hiding it, Hopper became one of the first British actors to publicly champion autism awareness for toddlers, appearing in campaigns and giving raw interviews about his fears and victories. His words still echo, "Freddie doesn't need to change for the world needs to change for him." Coming up, a rap legend whose son's diagnosis shattered stereotypes and built an entire community.
Your son has autism.
Yeah, Down syndrome and autism, yes sir.
Number 15, Fat Joe. He grew up in the South Bronx, rose from hustler to hitmaker, but behind the bravado, Fat Joe faced a far more personal battle. His son Joey, born in the early 2000s, was diagnosed with both autism and Down syndrome, a rare dual diagnosis affecting less than 1 in 1 million births. At first, Fat Joe kept Joey out of the spotlight, fearing how the world might treat him. But in 2013, he spoke out. "My son taught me what real strength is." Joey is nonverbal and requires 24-hour support. Fat Joe credits his son with grounding him, pulling him away from the streets into fatherhood. In 2021, he launched a scholarship fund for Latinx families raising disabled kids and began working with DS Foundations in Puerto Rico. What many fans don't know, Joey inspired lyrics in multiple Fat Joe songs and even has custom-built stereo headphones. Next, a daytime TV legend who became the loudest voice for a quiet child.
His eyes are like velvet because even as a little baby, when he would recognize you.
Number 14, Susan Lucci. She survived decades on daytime TV, feuds, comas, kidnappings, but her real-life plot twist came in the form of her grandson's diagnosis. In 2008, Lucci's daughter, Lisa Huber, gave birth to Brendan, a beautiful baby boy later diagnosed with cerebral palsy. The condition was mild but permanent. It affected his muscle tone, coordination, and ability to balance. Doctors told the family Brendan may never walk unaided. Lucci became more than a grandmother. She became an advocate. She partnered with the UCP, United Cerebral Palsy Foundation, appeared in congressional hearings, and helped raise over $2.5 million in donations by 2022. Brendan now uses an assistive walker and attends integrated schooling. Lucci even gave up roles to prioritize his care. Here's what she never told tabloids. It was her Emmy speech that first brought Brendan's condition into public view, and hundreds of CP parents wrote her afterwards to say thank you. But one next father never expected a diagnosis until the seizures came.
Once he said, because Mom passed away, I'm afraid you're going to.
Number 13, John Travolta. He was one of the biggest stars of the 1970s, but tragedy struck and the world only learned the truth after it was too late. John Travolta's son, Jet, born in 1992, was the light of his life. But behind closed doors, Jet faced developmental delays, autism, and Kawasaki disease, a rare inflammatory condition. At 15, Jet began suffering from frequent grand mal seizures, and the Travolta family hired full-time caregivers to monitor him. Then, in 2009, during a vacation in the Bahamas, Jet suffered a fatal seizure in the bathroom and hit his head. He was just 16 years old. It wasn't until after Jet's death that John and his late wife, Kelly Preston, confirmed he had autism, sparking worldwide conversation about seizure-related safety. They later donated millions to children's hospitals and co-founded the Jet Travolta Foundation, which supports neurodivergent youth and seizure monitoring research. The next mom didn't lose her child, but she never lost hope, too.
Yeah, special moment.
You better believe it, baby. Right. We finally about to get it.
Number 12, Tisha Campbell. She made us laugh in Martin and My Wife and Kids, but off-screen, Tisha Campbell's life took a dramatic turn. In the early 2000s, her son Zine began showing early signs of autism. He wouldn't respond to his name, struggled with speech, and preferred solitary play. Diagnosed at age 18 months, Zine's journey became the center of Campbell's world. At the time, autism awareness in Black communities was minimal. Tisha publicly documented every challenge, fighting for early intervention, learning the ABA therapy system, and even adjusting her career to accommodate treatment schedules. By 2011, Zine had showed dramatic progress. He learned to speak, socialize, and thrive in inclusive classrooms. Tisha co-founded Color My Mind, a nonprofit aimed at helping Black families navigate autism resources. Few fans know Zine now speaks at youth events himself, advocating for kids like him who once felt invisible. But our next entry had to make peace with a diagnosis in the middle of stardom. Number 11, Toni Braxton. She's sold over 70 million records, but Toni Braxton's greatest triumph may never hit the charts. Her son Diesel, born in 2003, was diagnosed with autism at age 3 after displaying delayed speech and social disconnect. Braxton admits she was in denial at first, blaming herself, wondering if vaccines played a role. But once she accepted the diagnosis, she took action fast. Diesel began intensive therapy, speech, sensory integration, and behavioral support. Braxton left music temporarily to guide him through the program. In 2016, she revealed in interviews that Diesel had been deemed off the spectrum by his neurologist, something that stirred medical debate but reflected his remarkable developmental leap. Braxton has since worked with Autism Speaks, raising awareness in underserved communities. Behind every red carpet appearance was a mother reading therapy manuals, managing meltdowns, and building a system from scratch. Our next entry has a daughter who changed her life and her entire public voice.
Here's some tea for you. There you go. I'm Caterina Scorsone, and we were here.
Number 10, Caterina Scorsone. On screen, she played neurosurgeon Dr. Amelia Shepard. But real life gave her a diagnosis no script could fix. In 2016, Caterina Scorsone gave birth to her second daughter, Pippa, who was born with Down syndrome. The diagnosis came as a shock, revealed only hours after delivery. Scorsone recalls the fear, the silence in the delivery room, and the sudden change in how nurses spoke. Rather than retreat, she became an outspoken disability advocate. She dove into inclusive education, neurodivergent parenting theory, and began working with Nothing Down, a global awareness initiative. Caterina also used her celebrity to spotlight issues in prenatal screening bias and postnatal support. She rewrote Pippa's narrative publicly. She didn't need to be fixed. I did. Pippa is now a thriving schoolgirl, and Scorsone's Instagram has become a beacon for thousands of new parents navigating Down syndrome. The next mom was a 90s comedy queen, and her child's condition changed every laugh.
Parker is 18, and there he is in his military uniform. He has been accepted to this.
Number 9, Rosie O'Donnell. She owned 90s television with sharp humor and bold takes, but Rosie O'Donnell's most defining role was mother to a neurodivergent child. Rosie adopted her son Parker Jaron O'Donnell in 1995. What the public didn't see, Parker struggled with learning disabilities, sensory integration issues, and signs of autism spectrum disorder from a young age. Rosie enrolled him in therapy early and advocated fiercely for individualized education plans, or IEPs. Parker later enrolled in military school. Rosie publicly praised the structure it gave him, but critics raised questions. In interviews, she shared candidly how parenting a child with special needs challenged her emotionally, even influencing her departure from The View. In 2015, Rosie founded the Rosie's Theater Kids program, designed partly to help neurodiverse youth find confidence through performance. What's rarely known? Parker now mentors teens facing similar struggles and credits his mom's tough love for saving his life. But the next star's child couldn't walk or talk until a medical breakthrough changed everything.
All of us could be seconds away from loving someone who is different.
Number 8, Amanda Booth. She walked runways for Versace, modeled globally. Then her son's diagnosis changed her forever. In 2014, model Amanda Booth gave birth to Micah, her first child. Early on, Micah was diagnosed with Down syndrome and later autism. Booth and her husband were told Micah might never talk, and his motor development would be delayed indefinitely. Rather than hide, Amanda took Micah into the spotlight, appearing with him in Nordstrom and Target campaigns, becoming one of the first models to promote inclusion through mainstream fashion. She became a public voice for dual diagnosis awareness, a medical condition seen in roughly 18% of children with Down syndrome. Micah uses a mix of sign language, AAC devices, and vocalizations to communicate. Booth also helped shape brand messaging for disability-inclusive advertising in the US and Australia. Few people know Amanda turned down major brand contracts that refused to include Micah in shoots. But our next celebrity's daughter inspired federal legislation and a whole new era of activism.
The first actor with autism to actually portray in a movie and a character with autism.
Number 7, Holly Robinson Peete. You knew her from 21 Jump Street and Hangin' with Mr. Cooper, but Holly Robinson Peete's real legacy may be her advocacy. In 1997, Holly and NFL quarterback Rodney Peete welcomed twins, Ryan and RJ. At age 3, RJ was diagnosed with autism. At the time, autism in black boys was underdiagnosed and undersupported. The Peetes faced isolation. Therapists refused home visits. Schools weren't accommodating. So Holly fought back. In 2000, she co-founded the Holly Rod Foundation, offering grants for therapy, adaptive tech, and housing assistance for families raising disabled children. By 2022, the foundation had raised over $10 million in services. RJ, once nonverbal, is now a public speaker and advocate, even appearing on The Talk. Even more powerful, Holly helped push bipartisan legislation for autism insurance mandates in 27 states. The next actor lost everything until his daughter's genetic disorder rebuilt his sense of purpose.
I know the facts because my daughter Mary has an autism spectrum disorder.
Number 6, Gary Cole. He's known for playing strict, no-nonsense roles in Office Space and Veep. But off-screen, Gary Cole faced a diagnosis that made time stand still. His daughter Mary, born in 1993, was diagnosed at age 2 with autism spectrum disorder. At the time, early intervention wasn't widely discussed, especially not among Hollywood parents. Cole and his then-wife Teddy Siddall devoted themselves to pioneering methods, applied behavioral analysis, or ABA, occupational therapy, and structured schedules. Cole kept the diagnosis quiet for years to protect Mary's privacy, but when he spoke up in the late 2000s, it was to advocate for earlier screenings and equal services for working-class families. He emphasized that every dollar spent on early autism therapy saves $8 in long-term support, referencing NIH studies. Today, Mary lives independently with support. Cole credits her journey for making him more empathic, measured, and willing to pass on the roles that conflicted with her therapy. The next entry story begins with silence and ends with a best-selling memoir.
Cannot believe I'm looking at this.
Number 5, Maya Rudolph. You've laughed with her on SNL, Bridesmaids, and Loot, but Maya Rudolph's real punchline came from parenting off the script. Her daughter, whose name Maya keeps private, was diagnosed with autism around age 4. Maya and partner Paul Thomas Anderson noticed early sensory processing issues, noise sensitivities, extreme food aversions, and social withdrawal. Specialists confirmed she was neurodivergent, likely on the high-functioning end of the spectrum. Maya never made a public announcement. Instead, she started writing under a pseudonym for a neurodivergent parenting support network, sharing experiences and gathering resources for other parents in creative industries. By 2021, she began quietly supporting Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, ASAN events, and worked with costume designers to make sensory-friendly red carpet looks for her daughter. Few realize she's even donated to fund adaptive classrooms in LA. One of her characters once said, "Life's messy. Maya knows it's also beautifully different." Our next star wrote one of the bravest books Hollywood has ever seen about raising a disabled child.
And we have opportunities all around us to step into spaces with people who are different than us in an intentional way.
Number 4, Heather Avis. She wasn't a Hollywood actress, but she became one of its loudest voices for children with disabilities. Heather Avis adopted 3 children, 2 of whom, Mason and Truly, have Down syndrome. Her journey began with a closed door. Doctors told her she couldn't conceive. She and her husband turned to adoption, never expecting their path to become a national conversation. Mason was born with Down syndrome and a severe congenital heart defect. After open heart surgery at just 3 months old, she survived and thrived. Heather started the Lucky Few, a social movement and media platform that now reaches over 250,000 families. She's written multiple best-selling books, spoken at the Special Olympics World Games, and consulted on casting for inclusive advertising campaigns. Few know this. Her Instagram advocacy helped push Gap and Target to cast their first child models with Down syndrome. Next, we return to a film legend whose daughter's condition transformed his entire worldview and cost him work.
I knew I was not cut out for the workforce in a normal way. I just knew my attention span.
Number 3, Sylvester Stallone. He fought in Rocky, but the real punches came from a diagnosis he never saw coming. In 1980, Sylvester Stallone welcomed his first son, Sage Moonblood Stallone. But it was his second son, Sergio, born in 1979, who brought Stallone to a breaking point. Diagnosed with autism at just 3 years old, Sergio's communication was limited, his motor coordination delayed, and his needs overwhelming. Stallone poured himself into research and therapy. At one point, he dedicated $1 million annually toward private care, therapies, and a specialized school. He even started a now-defunct foundation to support neurodevelopmental research. Meanwhile, Stallone rewrote parts of Rocky II to reflect themes of fatherhood and struggle. Publicly, Sergio vanished from the spotlight, but sources say he now lives quietly in a supervised community. A powerful fact? Stallone once said Sergio made him understand bravery that has nothing to do with muscles. Our next actor's disability shaped the kind of parent and ally he would become.
You were just 19 when you were cast in that film and ended up winning an Oscar for Best Actress, well deserved.
Number 2, Marlee Matlin. She won an Oscar without ever hearing her own applause. But as a mother, Marlee Matlin faced challenges that no award could soften. Matlin, deaf since 18 months old due to roseola infantile, married police officer Kevin Grandalski and had 4 children. One of her daughters, Sarah, was born with auditory processing disorder, APD, a condition affecting how the brain interprets sounds. Though not deaf, Sarah's world was just as filled with misunderstandings, miscues, and sensory overload. Matlin knew the signs. She got Sarah into therapy early, pairing signed support with spoken instruction, building a bilingual household, ASL and English. But the stigma from schools and fellow parents surprised her. Marlee went public with their story during a PBS educational special, urging neurodiverse inclusion in mainstream classrooms. She also lobbied for closed caption expansion to include live children's events, citing Sarah's difficulty with auditory learning. Matlin's message? Disability doesn't run in families, love does. And finally, the number 1 entry, an old Hollywood titan whose daughter's condition reshaped his politics, philanthropy, and personal redemption.
A moment ago, you asked, about people and feeling not only confused, but low and down in America.
Number 1, Ronald Reagan. Before he was president, before bedtime for Bonzo, Ronald Reagan faced a family reality he rarely spoke about. His daughter, Maureen Reagan, was born in 1941 to Reagan's first wife, actress Jane Wyman. Maureen's child, Ronald's granddaughter, Rita Mirembe Ravel, was adopted from Uganda after being orphaned and later diagnosed with cerebral palsy. The condition was moderate but lifelong, and though Reagan was out of office by then, he took a personal interest in her care, even donating to the ARC, one of the oldest U.S. disability rights organizations, in her name. When Maureen died of cancer in 2001, Reagan privately paid for Rita's long-term medical needs. More historically impactful, Reagan signed the Education for All Handicapped Children Act, 1975, during his California governorship, precursor to IDEA, ensuring public school access for disabled students. Despite political differences, families of disabled children praised Reagan's early policy work, even as his own journey remained mostly hidden from public view. Thanks for watching. These untold family stories reveal a side of fame rarely seen. Stay tuned, because the next countdown uncovers even more powerful truths from behind Hollywood's brightest lights.